Wow, I cannot believe that this is the third year of 13 Nights of Halloween 2022. I started this in 2020, when there wasn't a lot to do, and now this is my third year doing it. A lot of things have changed since then. My new job definitely takes up a lot more of my time, so I'm doing this at an undisclosed date. I could either be doing this in October or June or July. You guys will never know. Ha ha ha. But anyway, yeah, I'm here to choose my 13 movies now. And yeah, let's get doing. Let's do this. All right, first movie up. Close my eyes and choose whatever out of the basket. I mean the hat, whatever. It's a Nets cap. All right, first movie is my god. My Bloody Valentine remake. So I saw the original last year, so now I'm seeing the remake with Jensen Ackles. Love that guy.
My Bloody Valentine 3D. Nothing says date movie like a 3D ride to hell.
My Bloody Valentine released in 2010 and is directed by Patrick Lussier. It was heavily advertised to be seen in 3D. Supernatural alert, my boy Dean Winchester, Jensen Ackles is in this, and I support that man in whatever he does, and I'm so happy he's in The Boys. The original My Bloody Valentine, which I reviewed last year, is not a good movie, but it's like 80 minutes and there's a stupid fun charm to its trashiness. So a bigger budget, campy version in 3D with Dean Winchester, okay, I'm in. For the most part, the film does live up to that. It is a stupid, campy, fun slasher with sex and gore and blatant 3D shots that would have been a blast in a 3D theater. Like the original, it's a coal miner killing people on Valentine's Day. The kills in this film with its 3D shots made me laugh a lot. The sequence of the naked lady running away from the coal miner is pretty hilarious, and everyone seems to be committed to how stupid it is. Unfortunately, there's a late twist to this movie which I was kinda surprised by, but I'm pretty mixed on overall, and the film kinda takes a serious turn, which does not work. Also, the main cop character is such a dick. Overall, My Bloody Valentine remake is fun and stupid and gives you 3D sex and gore galore that makes you wish you were watching it in a 3D theater. But I feel like the first half is just much more fun than the second half. When the film tries to tell a story and gets serious, it kind of becomes dumb. But hey, Jensen Ackles, baby, so 7 out of 10 jack-o'-lanterns. Alright, number 2, baby! Number 2, woohoo! Alright, the next one is... shit. The Neon Demon. This is from Nicholas Winding Refn, the director of Drive. I heard this is a very disturbing movie, so I put a lot of obscure, a lot of crazy horror movies that are outside of the mainstream. So yeah, it's gonna be fun this year. Gonna be an interesting group of movies, I will say. The Neon Demon, released in 2016, and is directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, known for directing movies like Drive and Only God Forgives. So that right there tells you what type of film this is going to be, and it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Refn's work has gained notoriety because the movies that he makes can be both beautiful and deranged and can be very slow paced all at once. This film is no exception. I was a little bit anxious to watch this, not knowing what to expect, because I had heard from the internet film people that this film goes to insane places that will divide its viewers. This movie is about Elle Fanning's character named Jessie, who's 16 and wants to make it in the Los Angeles modeling world, and she soon starts to get serious attention and envy from the people she's competing against. To be quite frank, I really enjoyed watching this movie. In order to be on this film's wavelength, you just kinda have to vibe with it, and I immediately was locked in with the cinematography, colors, music, and the beginning scene that involved a photo shoot with Jessie wearing a dress with fake blood all over herself, which is indicative of how this film plays out. This film is freaking beautiful to look at. What Refn and the cinematographer Natasha Breyer do with the camera and the shots is just so, my god. If you just like camera shots, man, oh man, it's just so good. The neon lighting and just the way the color contrasts itself is just amazing stuff. There's extended scenes of the characters just posing and the lighting just goes crazy. And Cliff Martinez's amazing score is just synthing like no one's business. It's all just vibes, baby. Just vibe out. Just let it play out, baby. The story of the movie itself, yeah, it gets weird, disturbing, and freaky. Again, this is not for everybody, but Refn absolutely goes for it, and I respect that. It's hard to explain and go deeper without spoiling it, but I interpreted this madness as a dark, nightmarish satire on trying to make it not only in the beauty industry but also Hollywood. The last act of this movie lives up to its notoriety with some of the weirdest and most disturbing lasting images I've ever seen that will stick in your head. Overall, The Neon Demon is most definitely a beautifully disturbing experience about cutthroat models and our desire and obsession with beauty and how people are treated and could potentially act once they feel they aren't relevant anymore. 8 out of 10 jack-o'-lanterns. Alright, what's next? What is next? This is a meaty title. Okay. What is this? What is this? Okay, so I think this is the... Oh my god. The Last House on the Left remake. Yes, I saw the original last year, so now I'm seeing the remake. Yeah, that's just... yeah. So yeah, I'm seeing the Last House on the Left remake with, yeah. That should be interesting. I got 2 remakes now on my list, because I saw the originals last year. That's pretty cool. The Last House on the Left released in 2009 and was directed by Dennis Iliadis. It is a remake of the 70s film I reviewed last year, so watch that review. Remakes have been part of the horror genre probably longer than any other genre. The original Last House on the Left is not something I love, but it's a film from a young and hungry Wes Craven who wanted to push the boundaries of what was expected. The remake covers all the same bases of the first film, with a bigger budget and better actors. Tony Goldwyn from Ghost in the voice of Tarzan, Monica Potter as the mom, freaking Becca from Superbad is in this, Jesse Pinkman's one of the villains, Sarah Paxton, she used to be on Disney Channel. Oh yes, the actors are better than this, especially Tony Goldwyn and Monica Potter, who are the highlights of this movie. Because when the shock and despair on their faces when they realize what happened to their daughter, and the revenge they get on these absolute vile people is just so satisfying, like it was in the original. But in my opinion, the villains in this movie are just kind of more cartoony and more mustache twirly, and because the average nature of the ones in the original just made it feel a lot more disturbing, because it could literally be anybody you encounter on the streets. And like in this movie, it's like Jesse Pinkman as this villain, like you can't really take him seriously, come on. Overall, The Last House on the Left is still a very entertaining update to the original film, with the performance of the parents being one of the highlights, as well as the violent kills, but it kinda just feels like every other violent 2000s horror movie at that time, when the original, despite its flaws, can still manage to really disturb you and stand out even more than this one. But, 7.5 jack-o'-lanterns. Alright, let's see what's next. Crimson Peak, the Guillermo del Toro movie. Cool. Crimson Peak released in 2015 and is directed by Guillermo del Toro. This is labeled as a gothic horror romance with Mia Wasikowska, aka 2010 Alice in Wonderland, Tom Hiddleston, aka Loki, and Jessica Chastain, aka Mommy. I remember seeing trailers for this and it kinda came and went, and it doesn't help that Del Toro's next film in his filmography is the one he got the Oscar for as well, In Shape of Water. I actually quite enjoyed this film. The 3-actor core is generally really good, especially Jessica Chastain, who is just going for it in every scene. It's also kinda trippy to see a gentleman, early 20th century Charlie Hunnam, and freaking Jim Beaver from freaking Bobby from Supernatural's in this. Awesome. The film's production design, costumes, visual aesthetics, and cinematography are quite stunning, but that's expected of Del Toro. The ghost designs were so cool with their striking red look as well. The climax of this film especially stood out with the red snow that resembled blood, some blood being in there. The violence also looks so bloody and gruesome. Del Toro's a sick AF. So what's this movie about? Well, so mysterious Tom Hiddleston and Jessica Chastain, who are siblings, come into town and want funding for their clay mines. Tom falls in love with 2010 Alice and marries her, and takes her to live with him in the clay mines, and his sister is also lives there as well. And weird things like ghosts and questions about their past get raised, and stuff like that happens. But in my opinion, the twist at the end kind of makes the story fall apart. But Del Toro's direction and the acting keep it afloat. Overall, Crimson Peak was a very enjoyable, visually amazing film with good performances, but the story, in my opinion, falls apart. It has that iconic Del Toro visual flair and has some really memorable set pieces that only he can do. 8 out of 10 jack o' lanterns. Alright. Next is Paranormal Activity, the one that started it all. The start of the found footage craze. Let's do it. Paranormal Activity released worldwide in 2009 and is directed by Oren Peli, and in my opinion should be given more credit for what it accomplished with so little. Not only did it start the modern found footage trend, but I also think this film and this franchise can be credited for the demon ghost possession haunting subgenre of horror being so dominant in the last decade plus. This marketing campaign was top notch, being so aggressive, telling every young person that hey, this is the cool horror movie of the moment. Showing all these people get scared in the theater and stuff like that. I feel like the start of this too. Horror seems to be the one genre that can still take risk and doesn't really need a massive budget to do so. This film made over $100 million worldwide on a $250,000 budget. That is just so unprecedented that I feel like only a horror film could pull this off. Watching Paranormal Activity again, while it may not be a film I seek to rewatch often, I appreciate it a lot more now for what it does. This film has a great balance of leaving stuff to the imagination while also giving viewers enough to get scared by, or if that were your home, you'd be pooping your pants. Closing doors, flickering lights, bumps and thumps, the increase in the bass, and of course the ending. Kate and Mika, who you know aren't exactly Leonardo DiCaprio and Meryl Streep, but they do come off convincing as the average Joe couple, which is just enough to make you get immersed when things start happening. Overall, with Paranormal Activity, you have to take in the experience as a whole and know what it's going for, and in my opinion, it succeeds in that. The haunted ghost demons possession subgenre works great for found footage because it balances reality and supernatural myth so well, and incidents like the ones that happen in the movie is just stuff we desperately want to catch on film. And they did it in a way with some clever tricks that are still effectively creepy today. 8 out of 10 jack o' lanterns. Alright. Okay, so this is sort of a B movie. Exorcism at 6,000 feet. All right, we're doing it. Okay. Exorcism at 60,000 feet was released in 2019 and is directed by Chad Farron. It is everything the title suggests and a little bit more. You can't really take a movie like this really seriously knowing what it's called. The only actor I know from this is the guy who played Bishop from the original Alien. So it's about a priest who performs an exorcism and wants to bring this corpse of a guy who tormented him back in Vietnam to Vietnam. And on the flight, he comes alive and he possesses the airline passengers. They all gotta figure out how to fight this demon. This film is cheap, crude, and juvenile. But you know what? I laughed a good amount of times. Just look at some of this footage, man. Oh my god. It's essentially a cheap knockoff of many things into one. So essentially, it's pretty much a mockbuster. Two sequences stood out to me where some guy cheats on his wife, goes to the bathroom to have sex with her, Mile High Club, AE, and she gets possessed, and absolute hilarity ensues. And of course, there's a dead dog that gets possessed, and I don't know, I just find this stuff funny. Like, look at this cheap dog attacking people, it's so stupid. Overall, Exorcism at 60,000 feet should have been a YouTube sketch, but instead we got a drawn out, cheap knockoff for 90 minutes. And I could have, been okay if it was 70 minutes. I laughed, I can't lie, but this is bottom of the barrel junk food entertainment. Watch it when you aren't sober and want some cheap horror spooky laughs. 5 out of 10 jack-o'-lanterns. Let's see. Okay. The next one is The House is October Built. Alright. That's cool. The Houses That October Built is a found footage film released in 2014 directed by Bobby Rowe. It is a story of friends filming their late October Halloween road trip going to see the scariest haunted house attractions in the country. As they keep going into more houses looking for that ultimate experience, creepy things just start happening and it all seems to be going too far. I love haunted house attractions, so a movie about that is cool. I love the news footage they intersplice with the film that revolves around haunted house attractions and some of the shady stuff that can go on there and the colorful characters that work there. The haunted houses in this film are actually quite elaborate and colorful, and the found footage made it feel so immersive. It was creepy when they were at an attraction with a crowd and you saw things that are clearly not supposed to be a part of it. It also got really eerie when they were out and about outside of the houses and something really creepy was going on. That makes you question, like, oh, what is going on with these houses and stuff like that? What people are they attracting? Unfortunately, the movie kind of falls apart for me the last 15 to 20 minutes. I just felt that the build-up of the whole movie was much better than the actual climax of the movie when it was happening. And that kind of sucks, to be honest, when the build-up doesn't lead to something satisfying, personally for me. Overall, The House is October Built is most definitely a vibe that can be enjoyed by horror fans who enjoy haunted house attractions. It feels immersive and really gets you in the mood to visit one of them during the spooky season. While I think the ending was pretty underwhelming, the stuff beforehand was really fun. 7 out of 10 jack-o'-lanterns. The original Grudge from Japan. Let's do it.
Ju-on.
Ju-on the Grudge is a 2002 Japanese horror film directed by Takashi Shimizu. I don't know if I said that right, which is the original version of the American remake, The Grudge, which I have never seen, so this was a new experience. Unfortunately, off the bat, I didn't enjoy this movie. So this movie is about a cursed spirit that originates from a dude killing his family, and that evil entity terrorizes everyone associated with that house. At least that's how I took it. The reason I didn't enjoy it is the way the story is told. There's essentially no exposition and no setup for anything that happens with this movie. You jump around characters and locations a lot and you don't really care about what's going on. There is some really cool creepy imagery, but I was struggling with getting through this one. I felt bad initially watching, but I saw some reviews and my critiques were vindicated. And Scary Movie 4's parody of The Grudge kinda makes it hard to take this seriously as well. When I see that little pasty boy, I just kinda get reminded of this scene.
Tempura, sushi, sashimi.
Overall, there's some spooky fun stuff in this, but the story isn't well written in my opinion at all, and it made it hard to follow for me. But hey, it spawned a franchise, so maybe I'm not the demographic, so don't take this personally. 5 jack-o'-lanterns out of 10. Alright, this is a... Okay, let's see what this one is. I don't know why... Freaky, the movie with Vince Vaughn. That's a Freaky Friday take where Vince Vaughn goes into a teenage girl's body and the teenage girl is possessed by serial killer Vince Vaughn. This is a fun one. Freaky released in 2020 and is directed by Christopher Landon. It stars another supernatural actor, Catherine Newton, and freaking Vince Vaughn. It's essentially a Freaky Friday slasher. A high school girl named Millie, played by Newton, and a serial killer called the Blissfield Butcher, played by Vaughn, switch bodies, and absolute hilarity ensues. Honestly, this is probably one of the freshest takes on the slasher genre in a while. Vince Vaughn acting like a teenage girl is just everything it sounds like and more. Newton as a serial killer is also really great because she can use her looks and vulnerability as an advantage. And man, I just knew she had the stuff while watching Supernatural. So yeah, I knew Catherine Newton had it. I feel like more horror movies need to experiment and mix in genres like this in order to stay fresh. Mixing high school drama, Freaky Friday, and the cliches of slasher flicks is pretty genius. The kills in this are also really vicious. See some baby-faced Gen Z high schoolers get killed by a blonde girl acting like a psycho Vince Vaughn is everything horror fans should want. Overall, I really enjoyed Freaky with its quality blend of comedy, high school drama, Freaky Friday, and Friday the 13th kills that make one really unique horror flick. It sucks that this movie came out in 2020 when theaters were barely open again and not a lot of people were going, and it just kind of got dumped on streaming within weeks or the same day of its release. But hey, it was profitable because of its low budget. But yes, more horror movies, especially slashers, need to start mixing genres and elements like Freaky because it's a 9 out of 10 jack-o'-lanterns. Okay, let's see. This is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. All right.
After you stop screaming, you'll start talking about it.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was released in 1974, and man, what an awesome title. The original film of this franchise is very gritty and low budget, and it was Tobe Hooper's claim to fame. This movie revolves around friends taking a road trip to one of their old family homes and investigating some grave robber incidents. As they go deeper into the Texas rural area, they get brutalized by a cannibalistic family. Leatherface is the star of the show. He's essentially the original slasher horror icon. Yes, that's right, he came before Michael, Jason, and Freddy. Leatherface's design and personality are absolute genius. The use of the human face as a mask is just so sick. The way he kills is essentially how people slaughter farm animals, and the animalistic noises he makes is just so off-putting. The way he gets disciplined by his family members, it's like he's essentially the hulking baby of this family. What the movie achieves in its atmosphere with its limited resources is quite astounding. The grimy southern environment with its rundown houses and its sickly decorated environments make the skin crawl. The kills in this film are direct and kind of disorienting, but in a good way. The finale of this film, where the whole family is just tormenting this girl, and the final chase is some of the most thrilling, iconic horror stuff around. Of course, the final image is just one chef's kiss. Overall, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a gritty, grimy, no-nonsense slasher that's a straightforward watch in 80 minutes. It can definitely be rough around the edges, but it goes for it, and it can still be considered the start of the modern slasher genre, and its grimy atmosphere is still one of a kind that inspires stuff today, so 8 out of 10 jack-o'-lanterns. See if I can. Day of the Dead, the George A. Romero classic. I saw Night of the Living Dead last year. So, and this is, I think, is one of his sequels. So, yeah, this should be fun.
George A. Romero's Day of the Dead, the most eagerly awaited day in horror film history.
Day of the Dead was released in 1985 and is directed by George A. Romero. This film is the third Dead film after Night of the Living Dead, which I reviewed last year, go watch that, and Dawn of the Dead. This film revolves around a group of survivors well into the apocalypse where the undead outnumber humans 400,000 to 1. It's set in an underground bunker where there are scientists studying zombies trying to figure them out with military people protecting them. I really enjoyed this film. Everyone in this film is at their mental breaking point and are having breakdowns. The military people in this film, especially the leader of the military operation, are on the brink of taking over the operation and being like tyrannical leaders. I really dug the scientist subplot studying the zombie. There's so many interesting concepts of the undead that haven't been talked about enough since then. How the film explains the virus affecting their brains and their bodies is quite fascinating. There's also the question of, can we coexist with the undead, and if they are able to relearn basic human functions? There's also the theme of humans wanting to tear each other apart that could be interpreted in so many ways. I feel like the drama in this movie between the people is what directly inspires something like The Walking Dead. Even on the brink of extinction, it just seems like people just can't get along. The violence in this movie is pretty rad as well, with its impressive makeup and gory visual special effects. Even being this old, it still looked really good and bloody and tasty. The zombies look a bit goofy with their grayish blue or green skin, but there's a charm to it. And they're also really vicious in numbers. Overall, I really enjoyed Day of the Dead, and it might be my favorite of Romero's original 3 Dead films. I love going more into the zombie and the moment-to-moment tense interactions between everyone in the bunker. 8.5 jack-o'-lanterns out of 10. The Devil's Backbone. That's yeah, cool. That's a cool classic, so yeah. El Espinazo del Diablo, or The Devil's Backbone, is directed by Guillermo del Toro and released in 2001. This film is about a group of kids in Spain in a Spanish orphanage during the middle of the Spanish Civil War, and there's a ghost haunting them. Right off the bat, this film is like a prototype of Pan's Labyrinth, gothic fairy tale set in the backdrop of the Spanish Civil War. It's about kids, and it's violent. I enjoy this movie. It's sort of a coming-of-age film about tragedy and friendships. Del Toro seems to love having kids in peril even more than Spielberg. The ghost designs were cool, and all the performances were good. Like with every Del Toro movie, it looks amazing, and the gothic fairy tale atmosphere vibes are always welcome. I love seeing the kids gradually become friends and learn the heartbreaking backstory of the characters in the orphanage, and seeing the worst of humanity during a war. Overall, The Devil's Backbone is definitely solid with Del Toro's direction, the performances of the actors, the atmosphere, the camaraderie of the boys, and the awful things that can happen in war. I feel like this is a spiritual predecessor to Pan's Labyrinth, and both films can make an amazing double feature, so 8 out of 10 jack-o'-lanterns. Cannibal Holocaust. This is an interesting one. This is one of the original found footage movies, so should be a fun one. Cannibal Holocaust was released in 1981, directed by Ruggero Deodato, and it lives up to its notoriety. This is considered the godfather of found footage. Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity successfully commercialize found footage, but they do it in a way where it feels like you're viewing it through a camcorder. Whereas I really like the approach to this movie because they film everything as it's like a news footage documentary. Even though, yes, you can tell it's not a big budget movie, there's a legit look to this movie that reflects what old news footage looks like in a documentary like this. This film, by all accounts, is disturbing and gruesome as I'm not even going to show a lot of footage from this because a lot of this film is so graphic and explicit. It's actually quite astounding and impressive. Impalements, castration,
sexual violence,
severed limbs, cannibalism, and gruesome murders are all on the menu for this movie. Unfortunately, there is also real-life animal cruelty in this movie, which is very hard to watch knowing what happens, but some scenes really are shocking knowing what they do is real to animals. So what's this about? The first half is about a news crew in the Amazon searching for some documentary people who disappeared. They realize they're dead by the hands of a brutal, cannibalistic indigenous tribe, but they are able to recover their footage. The second half is the news people back in New York City watching the news footage and seeing all the heinous shit that went down with the documentary people, and they want to make all this footage into a sensational documentary for TV. This film could be seen as a critique on sensationalism in the media, especially in the news in countries outside the US. They bring up the fact that the news can stage events to make things look a lot worse than it is to entertain audiences. In my opinion, this film actually explores that pretty well. Whenever the Americans antagonize a tribe, it severely backfires on them as well. When you see what happens to the dead documentarians, it is absolutely gruesome and disturbing, but when you see what they did to lead up to that moment, they kind of deserved it for antagonizing them and doing absolutely horrible things for the sake of good footage. This film premiered in Italy, and it was so shocking the director was arrested because they thought it was an actual snuff film, meaning all the human deaths were real. So he had to prove to them that that wasn't the case, and he showed pictures of the cast and crew shooting the film. Cannibal Holocaust inspired a whole new perspective on horror, with this specific film being one of the most effective uses of that technique to this day. This gritty, raw nature just cannot be replicated for better and for worse. I really like the score of this movie. The theme that plays is sort of soothing and relaxing, and it's usually played when wild shit is going on. Overall, there's a part of me that absolutely admires the filmmaking here that requires a lot of commitment from everyone involved to make something that disturbs you to the bone. The animal cruelty is not okay and never will be okay, but unfortunately, that happened a lot on movie sets back then. This movie doesn't even have a rating, but it would probably be NC-17. This won't be a film that I put on in the background like Halloween or Friday the 13th, but it accomplishes something that's still effective over 40 years later. This is horror to the extreme, and it's pretty fitting that this is the final film out of the half for 13 nights, so I'll give it 8 jack-o'-lanterns out of 10.
Guys, thank you so much for watching the third 13 Nights of Halloween. I can't believe this is the third year I'm doing this. I started this in 2020 when there wasn't much to do. And yeah, I just want to keep doing this. I want to pick 13 random horror movies out of a hat and see what I talk about each year. I think this will be a fun thing to do to keep me on my feet, keep me on my toes, creatively. The footage that I used for my intros and outros were from my Universal Horror Nights trip in Orlando. I went there. The haunted houses were awesome. I absolutely, recommend it to any horror fan or any just Halloween enthusiast. Those haunted houses are awesome. And yeah, it's so cool. The Weekend's haunted house was amazing. The Halloween haunted house, awesome. The way they recreated those sets and everything. The Blumhouse house with the Black Phone and Freaky, so cool. It was so cool to see the Freaky house, especially that it's a movie I did this year. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that, and I thought, hey, why don't I get some B-roll from my trip there and use it for this year? And I thought it was a good idea for the most part. What else? It's a really fun time in horror movies right now. This year alone, I've seen Halloween Ends, Barbarian, Smile, and Terrifier 2. And, horror, I feel like, is like the one last uncorrupted genre because it's the only genre that you can make on a pretty reasonable budget and still get people to turn out for it. You don't need like huge stars in a horror movie. You kind of just need a cool original idea and that people can get excited about and people watch. Even something like Terrifier 2, a movie that is not for everyone and is violent as all hell. It it was made on a $250,000 budget, and a lot of it was crowdfunded, and it has made over $6 million. That's amazing, and yeah, I hope horror can still be uh, creative and excited in these years to come. I had a lot of fun watching these horror movies. I've had pretty unique horror movies this year. Um, Found footage movies, uh, Guillermo del Toro movies, the Ju-on, the Grudge. It was a lot of fun watching these horror movies this year, and I can't wait to do it again next year. Guys, thank you so much for watching again, and I'll see you guys soon. Happy Halloween, guys. Stay spooky.